I was reading an intro to a book on self-discipline or how to achieve goals or uh, create new habits. And again, I'm always struck at how all the goals are generally externally focused. But one of the interesting things it said in the book was it takes about, there's this common saying that it takes 21 days to create a new habit. And from my experience and the experience I've had in working with others, that just seems not to be the case. In the book, it says it actually probably takes about 6 to 9 months to create a new habit. And a lot of it is the way the way our brains are wired. And 90% of what in this book, it said 90% of what we do is based out of habit and routine, and is everything related to the way we're wired. And what I think happens is that we take too much of the burden or responsibility of who we are. Let me explain. That when we try to change ourselves, when we try to create new habits, we often get frustrated with ourselves and we say, oh, why can't I do this? Why can't I stick to that? Why can't I keep my goals? Why can't I be a better person? Why can't I I mean, the list goes on. And then we beat ourselves up for it without really looking into the neuroscience behind why we do the things that we do. A lot of it is very um, biologically, evolutionary focus, centered, motivated, and realizing that it is so hard to fight evolutionary impulses. This is why so many men have affairs and risk everything. I mean, women too. I mean, they risk everything, and it's this biological impulse to procreate that really can undermine and destroy careers. Just recently, the CEO of who's supposed to be a brilliant CEO of Hewlett Packard HP had to resign because of sexual improprieties or something along those lines. And I always think, God, it's amazing, what President Clinton did, that these men of power, Tiger Woods, I mean, the list can go on and on. These men of power who have so much to lose. You look at Tiger Woods, I mean, you're talking about his wife, his children, his billions in advertising revenue and divorce and all, just it makes no logical sense if you think about it rationally to have uh, a few minutes or a few hours of pleasure for the possible consequences of what can happen. And that's on a bigger scale. Taking it on a smaller scale, from the foods we eat to our daily routines to our inert laziness, to our inability to create new habits that we feel would be better for ourselves. What the cause is I just would love to just take a little bit pressure off of ourselves, a little bit less beating ourselves up, and realize that it's from a very young age, along with the biological impulses, but from a very young age, we're wired a certain way. We've been programmed from our schooling, from our parenting, from that countless of thousands and thousands of hours of indoctrination, from television shows, movies, media, magazines. We're set. We're hardwired in a certain way. And we've been falsely led to believe that we can easily just change our hardwiring just through willpower. Okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to change who I am, improve myself, so on and so forth. And that just doesn't work. And what the dangerous thing is that we beat ourselves up for our inability to change our hardwiring. And then we get down on ourselves, and it creates this like cyclical cycle of depression, frustration, sadness, comparing ourselves to others, and so on and so forth. I mean, a lot of men or a lot of people that have achieved great things. If you read the book Outliers, I can't remember which one of his books is, but I believe it's Outliers. A lot of people's success is just based on being at the right place at the right time. And so we don't take that into account. We compare ourselves to others and we say, well, that should be me. I should be doing this. I should be, the list goes on and on. It's very rare that you hear someone say, you know what, just as I am, just as my life is, just as my spouse or mate is, just as my children are, I'm content. I'm happy with the way things are. Now, there's nothing that I feel like I need to change. I mean, it's just unheard of. You just don't hear that. And why do we want to add all those burdens to ourselves? So, there is a couple options. I'm not saying that we should just sit, on our duffs and be miserable or be lazy or do nothing or not. It's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that we really need to evaluate what goals and challenges and desires that we have and adequately assess whether they're worth the sacrifice. Because when we make financial purchases, some people are pretty good at saying, okay, here's the cost. It costs X amount of dollars, and it's going to cost me, this many hours at work. If I buy this, it's going to be 2 weeks worth of work just to pay this off. And then we can make a proper assessment whether it's worth making the purchase. But with our goals, we seem to bite off more than we can chew. And we seem to say, I want this, I want that, without realizing, one, that a lot of the goals and desires that we have are artificially manufactured. They're externally based. They don't really reside deep within us. So that in itself makes it hard to get motivated, inspired, or give us the necessary fuel for the fire to light beneath our asses in order to achieve what we think we want. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, achieving these goals, especially now with how busy our lives have become and stressed, that there's not a lot of free time. There's not a lot of wiggle room to, become this miraculous person that you believe you need to be. And so we just need to cut ourselves a little slack and realize that any goal that we want, before we beat ourselves up and say, this is what we want, this is what we need to do, we should ask, am I willing to pay the price? Is it worth the sacrifice? Do I have what it takes? Because if I don't, I'm only setting myself up for heartache, frustration, self-loathing, if I keep on biting off more than I can chew. And one of the easiest things to do is just to be content where you are, where you're at. And I find that to be, it's like this book said, it takes 6 to 9 months to rewire your brain. I mean, that's a lot of work. Really, to achieve or to become accomplished at anything or to become successful, it takes a lot of work. And there's nothing wrong with that, but you just really have to measure the sacrifice and is the cost worth the benefit? Because we're so focused on the benefit that we don't even take into account the cost. And there's this great story of an accomplished professional pianist who just did the performance of his life. I mean, standing ovation. Everyone was just in awe of this man's talent. And after the concert, a lady came up to him and said, I would give anything to be able to play like you. And he looked at her dead in the eye, and he said, no, you wouldn't. She said, yes, I would. No, you wouldn't. I practice 6, 8, sometimes 10 hours every day of my life. I've been playing since I was a little child. While the other kids were going out to the dances and having fun and doing what teenagers and kids do, I was in there studying sheet music. I was in there practicing, sacrificing. And the woman looked at him and said, "You know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe I wouldn't be willing to pay the price." And I think that story is so telling, because it's just so much easier just to be happy where you're at. So much easier, and yet so hard to do, because we've been conditioned otherwise, that who we are is based on what we look like, what we've achieved, our status, how much money we make. And there was this book I was reading about, he was like this guy who's studying in India. And he was, I don't know, he's no longer alive, but he was supposedly really enlightened. And I talked to one of his students, and what the students said, that he could sit for hours and hours and hours on a couch in the corner of a room, without watching TV, in a corner of a room, and be by himself and just be totally content. He didn't need to accomplish, achieve anything. And I thought, man, that'll never be me. But what a model to look at and reflect upon and say, gosh, I don't think I can be that, and don't even know if I want to be. But there's so many areas in my life that I can practice just being content with stillness, just being content as I am, and just kind of letting go of the accelerator and putting my life on cruise control, and just kind of being a branch in a stream and just flowing with where life takes me. Instead of saying, I need to get here, I need to get there, I got to do this, I got to do that. Man, that is peace. All right. As always, thank you for listening, and I look forward to reading your comments, and have a wonderful day.